Hi viewers, I am Nyawargak Kiir and this is Waraga Global Influence Podcast. This is not just any podcast, it's a movement. In this show, we make sure we impact your lives, we educate your minds and inspire your heart. Whether you are a student, a professional, or a dreamer or an entrepreneur, I think this is for you. Now buckle up because I am so delighted to announce to you today that I am here with the CEO of MTN, MAPULA Bodibe. Thank you, and for those of you who have not subscribed, share. I strongly feel you should do that because you do not want to miss any of our episodes. Thank you, and hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you
for having me.
Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. So I would like to begin by, let's go back to Genesis. Who is Mapula?
Wow. That is such a big question. Mapula is first and foremost a mom to 3 beautiful children, a wife, and I am also currently the CEO of MTN South Sudan, an opportunity that I've had for the past few months. I have spent the last 20 years working in the telecoms industry, specifically with MTN. I've had the privilege of working in East Africa. I've worked in Uganda, I've worked in Rwanda, and now have an opportunity to work in South Sudan. But most of my time in the genesis of my career was spent in South Africa, where I was also working for MTN. I'm a telecoms specialist, and I really love impacting people's lives.
Wow, amazing. I mean, impact, it's all about what we are here for. I'm sure you've led MTN through exciting times, considering you have been a CEO at Rwanda, you've been a CMO in Uganda, and now CEO in South Sudan. I'm sure you've led MTN through exciting times and as well as toughest time in African challenging market. Can you take us back? Like, how did that prepare you for the person that you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I think firstly, when you join a company like MTN, the most impactful thing that happens to you is that you are there for change. You are there for positively, influencing people's life. So before any challenge comes, you look at it as an opportunity, because through technology, you have the opportunity to really build products, solutions, as well as using connectivity to really influence people in an amazing way. I think overall working in the African continent from a telecoms has been an exciting time, more opportunity than challenge. But I think naturally, because of sort of the maturity of telecoms in a lot of our markets, you have to start somewhere. In Uganda, I had an opportunity to focus on driving data access. When I joined Uganda as the Chief Marketing Officer, most of my focus was driving data connectivity, access to the internet, as well as smartphones. So really exciting in the way that you are able to influence people's lives. When I joined MTN Rwanda, I had an opportunity to bring 4G to citizens, as well as driving affordable access to smartphones. And then now coming into South Sudan, the biggest opportunity here is driving connectivity. A lot of people still don't have access to services. So first and foremost, we need to make sure that they have access to connectivity through the network. A lot of rural areas are still not connected. And then also a big focus on making sure that people have affordable access to services. So I look at all of these as opportunities more than challenges, and really exciting to have the opportunity to solve the problems.
Amazing. You're already on your path to impacting, and I love the word impact that you mentioned earlier. So, what is the bold initiative that you've taken so far in making sure that you are impacting, especially in South Sudan market?
Yeah, so I think in South Sudan, I've only been here for a few months, but I have studied the biggest need in this market, and I think for me, the number one focus that I have for the country is making sure that we leave nobody behind from a connectivity. So I'm spending a lot of time with our network team, making sure that for every single territory, for every single region, for every single payam across South Sudan, we aim to make sure that we bring connectivity. Recently, we had the opportunity of rolling out a network site in a payam called Abiong. Really amazing because it's really in a deep rural area. We traveled about 4 hours from Juba to get there. And when you enter into that local community, you see that it's people who have never ever have access to connectivity. So we built a network site there, and experiencing the joy that the people, showed when we came to launch the site was really, life-changing. So these are the kind of focus areas that I think, first and foremost, South Sudan is in need of. Beyond that, I think definitely access to smartphones. I think, a lot of us in more sort of developed areas of South Sudan use smartphones very casually.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, they don't even have access to a mobile phone. So we have a very bold ambition of bringing a affordable smartphone to every citizen, making sure that they are able to have access to the internet. Because when you access the internet, you actually are open to a world of opportunity. And then thirdly, I think a big focus for us is really on mobile money. I've worked in markets where mobile money has really been transformative in the way that it's developed the country, boosting the economy. And I think in South Sudan, it's a very exciting time because similarly to what we see in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Uganda, we have an opportunity to bring financial services to people who are not currently banked, and that actually opens up, economic opportunity for them.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing so far. God bless you. MTN, of course, operates in diverse and sometimes in challenging market. And I know, like you've mentioned, few, like the rural areas. How do you balance a profit-driven goals with creating genuine impacts? Because that is what MTN is all about. It's not only the corporate that is, making money, but is also looking at how to impact lives. So how do you balance that? Because at the end of the day, it's a company and it's got to make what it's supposed to make.
That is such an important question. And it took me back to when I joined MTN in 2005. I didn't know anything about telecoms.
That's quite a long time, right?
Yes, I didn't know anything about telecoms, but what excited me was about joining a company that was not only about profit, but also about changing lives and having something that is quite transformative and impactful. Bringing connectivity to people's lives is really transformative. So that's really the primary reason that I joined MTN. One of the things I love about the company is that we always keep that knowledge in the center of what we do. So we have a belief system which says everyone deserves the benefit of a modern connected world. So when you are appointed as a CEO in any market, one of your objectives, one of your priorities is to make sure that no one gets left behind. So of course you're always going to strive for profit, you're always going to strive for generating revenue, but you also have to balance that with making sure that you find really cost-effective solutions to make sure that people get connected. As an example, it's very costly to set up a network in any environment.
Sure,
but
absolutely.
what we do is that for rural areas, we actually have come up with a very cost-effective solution, which still allows them to get access to the connectivity, but at a more cost-effective way. So it's all about finding solutions that are able to economically make sense, but still achieve the same objective that you would achieve if you were focused on profit. And then also, as I mentioned, one of the things we want to do is to make sure that everyone has a phone. Now, we have a principle. We're not trying to make profit from phones. We actually sell phones at a cost, at a loss, because we want to just make sure that as long as somebody has a phone in their hand, we're not trying to generate profit from that. We just want them to have access. Once they have access, we know that, they'll be able to generate the value that we we need from them. So I think it's all about balance and making sure that we also, what works in Juba might not work in, Awil, might not work in Warab. So we also try to be very sort of, knowledgeable about the needs of every territory, every state, because you're not going to be able to try to match what you are trying to do in all the areas, because people are at different stages of their lives. Also, people afford differently.
Amazing, amazing. I love the impact already. Telecom MAPULA has moved far beyond calls and just texting. How is MTN positioning itself as a live digital company rather than just a network provider?
Yeah, that's an exciting question and something that MTN is also navigating. So between 2020 and 2025, we've had this strategy which is called Ambition 2025. And most of the focus was on network connectivity, data services, mobile money. And now that we are at the 2025 point, we have a strategy which we are focusing on, which is beyond 2025. And that strategy is really about how MTN transforms itself into a tech core rather than a telco. And what that means is that it becomes more of a, holistic solutions provider around technology. Digital services become part of our core offering. ICT services become part of the solutions we offer the enterprise customers. And then in terms of making sure that our customers, when they access our services, they're not just accessing connectivity, they're accessing services such as, the WhatsApps, the social media, because people are not just focused on internet for internet's sake. They are accessing it to be able to see how it integrates into their life. All of us, when we wake up today, the first thing we do is to pick up our smartphones. So MTN is trying to make sure that we become sort of a solution provider across all the services that are using our connectivity, and not just being sort of what we call a pipe, which just provides basic connectivity, but also is able to provide the end solution in the form of services.
Oh, that's good. Truly, I want us to go back a little bit on what I asked earlier about going beyond even to the rural areas. I mean, connectivity is power, right? And how is MTN ensuring that their services remain affordable even for the ordinary people? Because I can afford it, someone else can afford it, you can afford it. Now, what of the people that really cannot afford expensive services? How is MTN ensuring that they remain connected, the internet, the telecom services remain affordable for even ordinary people in South Sudan and beyond?
It's a very important question, right? And it's a very challenging question, especially in the current macroeconomic situation.
Sure.
Because most of our equipment, we basically source in dollars. Now, with the depreciation, it makes it very difficult to still be affordable when you're having to import equipment in dollars. But what we've done is we've come up with products and solutions that allow people to, at a very, very low rate, still enjoy the service. There's a product we launched recently at the end of June, which is called MTN Huggy.
MTN Huggy?
Yes, MTN Huggy. And MTN Huggy is actually our most affordable service. It allows customers from as little as 100 SSP to be able to get access to making calls, access to internet, and then being able to connect to their loved ones. So all you need is as little as 100 SSP to be able to do that. So we are innovating to make sure that people at a personal level. So what we do is, how Haji works is that it actually studies your behavior. It understands your own personal affordability constraints. If you are, based on your usage behavior, you never have enough balance, we will never present to you a 2,000 offer when we can see that you only afford 100 SSP. So it's a personalized offer. We've recently launched a campaign, and it's all about you. Even, when you look at the creative, it's actually designed to show that it's all about you. So it's designed to say, we know who you are, we understand your constraints, and we've developed something that is personalized for you. So no two people, will be able to be treated the same way. And we've also seen, like, it even goes to at a regional level. When you look at people up country, you see that there's a big affordability constraint there compared to the people in Juba who are, able to spend bigger. So we have a product called Zol Kabir, which is actually for people who are
I use that all the time.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people who use that product who are more in the affordable side. We are also launching a product that's coming up, very exciting product, which will be called, I won't mention the name, not to give away, our secrets, but there's a product that actually will be for the person who doesn't afford. So that's an exciting new development that's coming up in the next 2 weeks, which will launch to the market. And what it's trying to say is that you can be a big person with, big pockets, or you can be a smaller person with not so much affordability, and MTN has something for you.
Wow. That's amazing. Around that, I would like to stay back a little bit. If you were 25 years in Africa, of course, with dreams but no resources, how do you leverage MTN ecosystem into building a future as a young African girl, as a young African boy?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a powerful, analogy that you talk about. If you're a young African girl, a young African boy, first of all, you are very privileged to be able to have connectivity, because the fact that you have connectivity means that as much as you might be in a village, in a town, you actually have access to the world. That's number one. First thing is very important to get yourself a mobile phone. What that will do is that it will connect you to the rest of the world. Without having to move around, you are able to connect to people across the country, even internationally, because we've got services that allow you to connect to everyone globally. And then not only that, through social media, you can connect to people who are out of the country as well. Thirdly, if you have sort of a skill or a passion, we see a lot of young people now who are using, social media to start up businesses. And through those businesses, you are able to use e-commerce, which is supported by mobile money, to then use your trade to actually provide services to different people across the world. We encountered a lady recently when we were doing a project in Mangaten IDP camp who, sells soap. And through our service, her story was that she was able to, through our service, start marketing her service of selling soap to people outside Mangaten. Initially, she used to only focus on Mangaten, selling to people in the community. But once, she was able to connect to MTN data as well as mobile money, suddenly she was able to start selling to people who are outside of Mangaten. So that's really such a powerful story of how you can actually make a living, you can provide for yourself through using our services. And then I think lastly, it's also an opportunity for young people who are talented and innovative to actually use our connectivity to actually find other solutions. We have a lot of people who are very innovative and creative. And one of the things we are planning to do is to launch a hackathon that allows people to then use the technology to actually come up with very creative ideas of how they can actually create a business. So we're very focused on driving entrepreneurship as well as providing digital skills. One last point I'll mention is that we also have ICT hubs that we've partnered with across the country. I recently had the opportunity of visiting the ICT hubs in Juba, met young people, and I was trying to understand, how do they experience our service. And, some of the things they were saying that, they went to university, they don't currently have employment, but they are able to, through our ICT hubs, be able to learn about Microsoft applications, internet services, and access basically connectivity. And that's giving them sort of like an opportunity to be part of the, give them economic participation. So these are some of the things that young people in particular have an opportunity to, to enjoy from our services.
Oh, wow. You've already talked about my next question because I still want us to be around the youth and everything. Yeah, MTN is doing such an amazing job. I would say congratulations. And, I want us to talk more on that. I want us to dive deeper on that. How is MTN creating opportunity, innovation hubs, reducing unemployment for the youth?
Yeah, so I think this is a topic that is very close to our heart. I think the first thing is obviously the ICT hubs that I've mentioned, because without digital skills, it's very difficult to get employment. Mm-hmm. A lot of opportunities, the first thing they ask you when you're looking for a job is, do you have, basic digital skills? Mm-hmm. So through our digital hubs, we are giving people that foundation where they can actually help themselves to be, digitally capable and confident. Because a lot of people, as we've now understood, when they go to university, they learn the theory around computer science, even, of these applications, but they don't have the practical. And that's the reason we started rolling out these hubs, so that they can actually practice what they learned in theory, because there's no company that will just employ you from the theory. I think the other thing we are doing is we have an exciting partnership with, Sip and Shop in South Sudan, where it's a program that's focused on empowering young entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs. So we partner with that precisely to empower young women. And the reason we participate in that platform is that we see women who, first of all, have the initiative, they've taken initiative, they started a business. It could be a business where they are doing anything. And then we then give them the empowerment by partnering with Sip and Shop to then showcase their produce, their services. And then use mobile money to be able to, receive payments. So that's another program which we are very passionate about, and I think we're expecting that to impact even more young people who are entrepreneurial in their spirit. And then recently we've also launched a program with an organization called Inkomoko that is giving loans to entrepreneurs. This is also an exciting program. What they do is they identify up-and-coming entrepreneurs who are, show the potential, but they don't have the capital. And then with Nkomoko and MTN, we then partner to give them that capital, which gives them sort of like a kickstart for their business. And then once their business is up and running, we also then empower them with digital skills to be able to use e-commerce, to be able to use mobile money, and that sets them up for success. So these are some of the programs we are very focused on for really empowering young people.
Amazing, amazing. I know as part of your core values, impact is something big for you. How is MTN contributing actually, especially now I want to bring it back here in South Sudan, beyond business, contributing to peace and nation building?
Yeah, that's a very important question. I think peace and nation building, obviously, first and foremost, it falls under the responsibility of the government. So as a corporate citizen, we are guided by policies and regulations, right? So I think how we contribute to peace and nation building, I think firstly is that we provide connectivity. Without connectivity, a lot of the peace and nation-building efforts are not necessarily possible. Recently, I had a meeting with the governor of Central Equatoria, and he was talking to me about how our connectivity service is helping them to ensure security of citizens, making sure that they are able to monitor any activities that might not be, helping the safety of people. And he was really just compelling me to make sure that our connectivity is always reliable, because if we are not reliable in our service, it affects how people can be secure. I think secondly, we also work with a lot of the agencies. Recently, we launched a program with WFP where they were basically distributing sort of like funding to affected citizens up country in Bargazal. And what we did was we used mobile money to help them to distribute. So they were distributing funds to every single family who is really affected by the circumstances where they don't have basic, food services, even just their well-being. And with World Food Program, we were able to distribute this money to be able to give each household. This is a program which we are also very passionate about. The other program which we are very passionate about is that we are partnering with UNICEF, basically to help protect children from, online digital harm, as well as making sure that they are educated about, the potentially being digitally, abused. There's a lot of that kind of thing happening recently. So we are launching a program which is called Help Children Be Children, which is actually going to help parents as well as, kids to really protect themselves when they are online, because there's a lot of online abuse happening right now. And that we believe is also going to help with just, nation building.
Amazing. I want us to go back, Mapula, to what you mentioned earlier as one of the, impact that you give to the entrepreneur. What are some of the requirements for one to qualify for such opportunities where you're given a capital when you have a dream? Because it all comes down to having a dream, but then you don't have what it takes to actually start something, but you do have the good idea. So what is the requirement perhaps people might want to know for you to qualify for such opportunities?
Yeah, so we work with a company called Inkomoko. So they are the experts in identifying those budding entrepreneurs. So what they do is that they screen entrepreneurs based on, first of all, the ideas that they have. So to make sure that the ideas are really economically viable. They screen the entrepreneurs based on having sort of the basic skills to be able to sustain that business. And then they also screen the entrepreneurs through like an interview process. And then through the interview process, they're able to ascertain whether this is somebody who's really serious and has a vision about their business, or this is somebody who's just, taking a chance. And through that interview process, they then identify those entrepreneurs who have the biggest potential, and then those are the ones that are afforded the capital.
Amazing. Mapula, what do you think Africa need from its corporate leaders like you? What do you think Africa is in need so much from corporate leaders like you? And this is something I want to just throw to you.
Yeah, I mean, sure. It's, working in Africa almost comes with a additional obligation than one, working in any other part of the world. We might all have sort of the basic backgrounds and qualifications to work in corporate, but I think in Africa it demands a little bit more. I think firstly, as a woman, I think what Africa demands from me as a leader is that I have to be a bit more empathetic around understanding the context. And what that means is that, the point I made around, it's very important to be able to understand the core needs of people, not just, providing service for profit, but really understand the core need. And when you understand the core need, you can understand how you can impact people's lives. And then secondly, I think what Africa needs is for leaders to have a purpose, be very purposeful in what we do. Because without a purpose in what you do, you end up losing sight of sort of the long-term impact that is needed on the continent. Now, when we look at where Africa is compared to the likes of China, the likes of India, you actually also have to have a vision. You have to have that vision, but also ambition to say, I can see where we are now, but I have such an ambition for Africa to get to where a lot of these countries are. Africa being able to have its own, 5G. Africa being able to use AI to solve its own problem. Africa having its own solutions to solve African problems. So you need to have, not just a vision, but also the ambition for Africa. It has to really, keep you awake at night to say, how can I use my industry, my company, to actually have a long-lasting impact on the continent beyond just, delivering a basic service.
Amazing. What is the most transformative leadership lesson so far, and how did that shape the vision for MTN?
I think from an MTN perspective, I've been at MTN for a number of years, and I've had the opportunity to see MTN transition from different sort of strategies and missions, and I think probably in my experience, the most transformative strategy that MTN has had is really what we have really been embarking on over the last 5 years, which is the Ambition 2025 strategy. Because I believe in this period, the company has had the most transformation, where we have moved from just being a connectivity provider to being a solutions provider, to being a digital provider, to being a financial services provider. So I think MTN for the last 5 years has really probably had the biggest growth in terms of its outlook, in terms of as a service provider.
It was the other day that I was just looking on the internet to actually find something about you, and you've been in MTN for quite a number of years. I wonder if you can talk to us about, the consistent, because you're at the top of your game, you're at the peak actually, even before you are brought to South Sudan as a MTN CEO. How were you able to, to do away with the distractions from other, big companies because I want to believe that there are companies that come to you and approach you and say, hi, MAPULA, we want you to be also the CEO and at this company. So how are you able to just be consistent and not get away by distraction that comes in form of opportunities to a level that you have grown and just focus? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think you're right. Definitely, there have been many opportunities for me to leave MTN and join other organizations. I have been offered opportunities outside, but I always go back to what I said earlier around, where I've reached the stage where when I look at an opportunity, I don't look at it just based on, it's a big opportunity as a promotion, it's a big opportunity to give me a higher remuneration. I look at it based on how is it going to impact society. So that's really now become core to how I evaluate any opportunity that I have. I look at it based on how is it going to change people's lives and how is it going to allow me to solve problems in using the capabilities that I have in my background. And normally when I go back to that, I always go back to, MTN is the place that provides me with that opportunity, it provides me with that challenge. And so far, I haven't had any other company that's provided me the same sort of opportunity to impact lives in the way that I have at MTN.
Wow, excellent, excellent. I mean, sometimes you have a core values, and as leader as you are, I'm sure you definitely don't just go for anything. It has to represent what your core values are. Wow, amazing, amazing. I look at some of your interviews and I realize that you really come from a very strong foundation when it comes down to education. Tell us a little bit about that. How did it contribute to the person you are today and your vision again for MTN? Because when I, like I said, I was just kind of finding some things about you on the internet, and I saw you are a powerhouse. I was like, one need to prepare for this. I mean, I'm nervous. I'm gonna interview a superstar in Africa, somebody that is you're a superstar in that field, in the corporate field, because you've done so many amazing things. So, is there any mistake that you've ever done in your journey? And before I get right into that, I just want us to, maybe you can talk to us about your background. How did that help you? Really, did it contribute so much in the person that you are today, and the things that you have done for the giant yellow?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was born and raised in South Africa, and then I had the privilege of growing up in a family of educators. My parents, my grandparents were all educators, and because of that sort of upbringing, they didn't compromise on having the right foundation from a education perspective. So I was able to go to some of the best schools in South Africa. I was very privileged to be exposed to, that high level private education from a young age. And then also my parents really took advantage of my intellectual curiosity, and they exposed me to a lot of sort of the kind of content and exposure that gives you sort of a breadth of understanding and how to embrace the world from a very young age. So I think I would really credit my family for really a solid foundation in education and really pushing me. I could never get anything except sort of the top marks in school. So they pushed me. At the time, I was probably unhappy and frustrated. Felt that they were demanding too much. But now when I reflect on it, I think that, they really set me up for success. They never were satisfied with me coming to home as number two. They always wanted number one. So, yeah, so it really developed this sort of character where I have to always push myself to be going the extra mile.
Absolutely. They've done an amazing job, and I think, like you mentioned, it does contribute. I mean, a foundation, strong educational foundation, really does play a lot in our lives. So Mapula, you make some of the biggest, decisions in MTN. Considering your position, is there a time where have you ever made mistake, and how did that, what lesson did you learn from that?
Yeah, in a career that I've had, I have made many mistakes, and I always say that, if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn, and through the mistakes is really how you refine your knowledge and your skill around a certain area. So I think definitely I have made mistakes, but I've not looked at the mistakes as sort of the end. I've always embraced that as, okay, this is a lesson I needed to learn. And because of that, I then use that to then influence how I will address a similar challenge in future. As an example, in our business, you have to use a lot of, information to make decisions. And, there are times where I didn't have all my facts and I made decisions and ended up maybe a decision backfiring because I didn't have all my facts with me. So then what that taught me is that the next time when I face and encounter, a certain question that's posed to me to make a decision, it's very important that I have enough facts to be able to make that decision.
Excellent, excellent. Again, around that, I'd like us to talk about those bold decisions that you've ever made. Did some of them turn out, and how did you feel about them?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, in the opportunities that I've had, not everything has been done. Not everything, there's no memo that's waiting for you to look at to say, okay, this is how you navigate. A lot of the time, you are starting from zero. You have to build up sort of knowledge on how to approach a certain problems. And I've had many, many, challenges like that thrown at me, where I'm scratching my head. How can I go about this? Which is the right, decision to make? Should we invest? Should we not invest? And so forth. So, and I've had both successes as well as not successes. But where it's been successful, it's been super successful. Where by really, making a decision to take on a certain challenge, it's actually generated a lot of value for the business. So I'd say there's been a balance, but there's definitely been more successes than lack of success.
What are some of the things that keeps you awake as a CEO of MTN?
I think definitely right now, just like everyone else, what's keeping me awake is the current macroeconomic challenges that we have, and how, first of all, we can make sure that our business continues to be operating profitably, but without actually losing people who are not able to afford. Because the more difficulty there is in the economy with the food inflation as well as inflation, the more people can afford. So I'm constantly, worrying about that, to say, I hope the situation improves so that people can be able to afford, so that the economy can stabilize. That's really, I would say, number one right now on my agenda. I think the other thing that's keeping me awake is that I see so much opportunity in South Sudan. I see so much potential. I mean, South Sudan has one of the lowest internet penetrations in the whole of our MTN group. And when I see that, I really feel like, wow, how can I make sure that I am able to leave a legacy that changes this, so that more and more people in South Sudan are able to get access to the internet. And it keeps me awake because I'm really trying to navigate how to make sure that I'm able to find the right idea, the right solution, the right opportunity to make sure that people get connectivity, people get access to services, but at the same time, we don't have the like unlimited resources. So it's really trying to balance that. How do we use limited resources to be able to achieve everything that we want to achieve? And then lastly, I think what definitely keeps me awake is how do I make sure that my team, the people that we lead within MTN, that they are developed and that they are successful. I think that also is something that I think about. How do we make sure that we empower them to develop to becoming sort of the stars of the future? I think in the future, there shouldn't need to be a person like me coming from outside to come to be a CEO in South Sudan. In the future, there should be somebody within South Sudan who's able to stand up and say, I can be the CEO. And when you come in a role like myself, it's one of the key, objectives you're given. How do you make sure that you have the succession to replace yourself? And for South Sudan, definitely, When I had a meeting recently with the Minister of ICT, that's one of the challenges he put to me, to say, please make sure that you develop the local talent. Make sure that local people are able to, take up, senior positions. So I'm always thinking about this and making sure that, it's something that we are able to achieve, but also the well-being of our staff keeps me awake. Especially because I'm responsible for our staff, and I need to make sure that despite the current economic challenges we're facing, how are they able to sustain themselves? Are they able to still have sort of like a very, healthy well-being whilst navigating the economic challenges we're facing?
Interesting. You mentioned about empowering young South Sudanese who can be able to take up the role, so that you don't have to come or any other person. So, what are some of the things that you do in that area that is making sure that you are raising leaders that can also take up the role and do some of those big decisions that you have been doing, and of course, most of them come successful?
Yeah, so it's an important question, and as I mentioned, I was challenged by the minister. The first thing is we've actually developed a succession program where for every senior position in the company, we've identified a local person who can be a successor. That's number one. And I've done this together with my management. And what that will do is that for the people who've been identified, over the next 2 to 3 years, there will be sort of like a development plan that is created for them, which is actually agreed between themselves and their line manager. And this development plan will include training, it will include milestones that they have to achieve, and it will include, leadership development that we have to provide them. And through, because it's something that is needing to be done over a period, and we call it a PDP, and by developing this personal development plan for them and helping them to achieve this milestone over 2 to 3 years, then we can achieve that ambition of saying that by this time, in this period, in 2 to 3 years, this person can replace sort of somebody who is maybe not a local person in a certain capacity. So that's what we're doing. But also, I think there's a lot of opportunity. One of the things I would really like to do is to invite very successful South Sudanese who have achieved, whether locally or internationally, to come in and talk to our staff members. Because I also think there's a mindset thing, There's a mindset which says, I'm South Sudanese, but I can be a star, whether locally or even internationally. And I think the more we can expose our staff to those kind of people, the more empowered, the more motivated, and the more possible they will see that this is something that they can also achieve. Representation is important.
Correct.
If people don't see people like themselves achieving great things at a senior level, they don't have the same buy-in. But as soon as somebody sees, whether it's a woman or a South Sudanese, in a certain high-profile opportunity, they can look at it and say, actually, this is something I'm also able to achieve. So this is something that's really close to my heart. I'm looking for an opportunity to identify those South Sudanese who can really come within an organization and really empower and inspire our people.
Interesting. Mapula, you're already doing so much within a short period of time. It's about actually the leadership. What you're showing is that the leadership is not about to be served, but it's about serving others, right? You have gone far beyond your role, and you're even empowering South Sudanese so far with the initiative that is going on. I'd like to really, if you can talk to us about some of the leadership qualities that you maybe have that has really helped you in having more success in MTN, because I believe that you are a corporate leader and you definitely have some of these qualities. of a leader? Like I could already, see the part of you serving others instead of, being served, right? So what are some of the leadership quality that you believe has really contributed to the heart that you're having toward people, to you wanting to impact, to you living beyond just your role as a CEO of MTN?
No, this is very key. I think for me, the first thing I will say is that you have to be curious. You have to be curious about wanting to know more than what you know. And when you want to know more than what you know, you don't stop learning. So I think for me, it's a very important curiosity. Is very important to develop as a young person, but also as you want to become a leader. So it's something that's really driven me. Even today, as much as I'm a CEO, I'm very curious about the things I don't know, because I think as much as I know what I know, I can learn so much more that can influence how I approach a certain opportunity. So that's the first one. The second one is you have to have courage, because a lot of leaders, you are put in roles that you have not done before, but you have to have the conviction to say, actually, I can do it, and that takes courage. You might have doubts, you might have fears, but you have to be able to be so courageous to say, actually, I'm up for it.
Sure.
And that's got to do with a lot of self-belief, and you have to be courageous enough to do things that you've never done. So that is the first one. I think the third one is you have to be consistent. I think when you're working, especially like, for example, someone like myself, been at MTN 20 years, you have to be consistent, because when people see consistency, they know, oh, this person is reliable. They know, it's like every time I give this person something, I know what I'm going to get. And that builds a lot of confidence, because, consistency makes you reliable. And what happens is, even before they give you something in the future, they already know this person is going to ace it. And that builds a reputation. And when you're consistent, you're reliable, and your reputation is built, then people start to talk about you when you're not even in the boardroom, because they talk about you because of your repeated actions that they've seen so consistently in what you've done previously. The next one is definitely you have to be competent. This is actually 4 C's, as you can see. Competent. What that means is that you have to be so good at what you do. It doesn't matter what it is you do. If you write, you have to be so good at it. If you are, an engineer, you have to be so good at it. If you are a salesperson, so everything that everyone does, you have to be so good in it that you become sort of like the go-to. Because when you become the go-to and you become so good at it, then that also feeds into your reputation, so that people know that this is something that actually this person can do, when you're not in the room. I mean, I had such an opportunity. When I was at MTN South Africa, there were certain meetings that when the meeting was happening, they would look around the room. If I was not there, they would say, oh, okay, we need to call her. So the meeting would stop, call you, because they realize, okay, she's the most competent in the subject, so let's make sure that we bring her in. And then I think the last one, you have to be confident. These are sort of like 5 C's that I always go to. You have to be confident. It doesn't matter. It's not about being shy or introvert or extrovert, but you have to be confident in what you bring. Because if you don't show up for yourself, who's going to show up for you?
No one.
No one, So confidence is very important in terms of how you show up and how you represent yourself, because, these days, that's really what sets you apart, being able to stand out and bring something unique that other people are not bringing.
Wow. Excellent. I mean, consistency truly is the key. No wonder you're at the peak, you're at the top of your game, because all this that you mentioned really does contribute to the greatness or the person that you are. If you could, Mapula, if you could like today, sent a text message to all the Africans, to youth, young, small, what would that message say?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, wow, what can I say? I think I would say if I were to send a text message to particularly young people, I'm very passionate about young people. I would tell them to believe in themselves. I would tell them to believe themselves. I'll tell them they are enough. Because often, when you are young, if you look at a child, they are the most confident little beings in
True.
their own little world. It's only once, you grow older that you start to see someone maybe changing because of how the world reacts. At school, they are taught to behave in a certain way. At church, they are told, to keep quiet. So the world molds people to become sort of uniform. But when you are young, you have the free spirit. And I would say, you need to, as much as you are in a uniform world, you need to have the self-belief, and you need to know that you have enough in you to achieve anything that you can achieve. So that self-belief, it's something I really would instill in people, to know that they can basically achieve anything that they set their minds to.
Wow, amazing. That's wonderful. That's excellent and interesting at the same time. Okay, so I want us again to go back to you. And just to go back to you. In some of your interviews I watched and I saw that you did an accounting. That's pretty interesting because I did an accounting too. And at least you went and practiced what you went to school for. But I never got to practice. So I was like, oh my goodness. So I was not wrong, and I'm not alone to actually go for a course. But at the end of the day, it's not what you really want to do, because I'm one of the people that actually measured accounting out of, what the family want for me, because my grandfather usually and used to expect me to be an accountant so that I get to represent the whole family in the central bank. And so it wasn't really something that came out of me or something that I wanted to do, but it was out of, I want to please my grandfather. So I went into accounting and measured accounting, graduated. I was not really so bad with numbers, not as bright as you are. But yeah, I went to school and I used to be not the student that are not the first. I've never gotten number one, but I'm always just there, So what can you tell us about that? Because really, I used to think that if I had gone to school and spent all those years measuring accounting that I never got to practice, then surely there is a mistake somewhere. So is it okay to still have the course or measure a certain course, but at the end of the day, you find that it doesn't align with who you are?
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. And I smile because it's a very similar story to mine. My grandfather was a teacher similarly, and he was very traditional in the way he wanted us to study. And for him, you're either going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or a teacher. So I also, very similarly to you, went into that kind of qualification because of sort of the family's expectation. But I only practiced it once, for 1 year. I became an accountant and I worked for 1 year as an accountant. I didn't enjoy it. And then from then on, I then ventured into other areas. But I think from my side, thankfully, I'm still using that competency in what I do today. I'm not practicing, but actually the background in numbers is what helps me to achieve the work I do today. But I think, to be more directly responding to your question, I think that, a lot of people find themselves in that situation where they are having to do something because of the family. And I think the first thing I would say is we have to appreciate that the family has our best interests at heart. If I reflect on your story and my story, our grandfathers wanted the best for us because when you're young, they see the ambition for you before you see it for yourself. And I think it's not a bad thing. But at the same time, I think it's very important to, whilst you have that foundation, because I think you can't ever say you don't get anything from that foundation. That foundation, in one way or another, shows up in the way that you are able to do your work. You know, you might be an entrepreneur with an accounting background, then you'll be able to understand what's happening in the business. But I think that ultimately the best gift is being able to have early enough in your career the right steer towards the area that you are most competent and passionate about, you know. But I think when I reflect on your experience, I think, you know, I don't think your family had anything sort of none positively intended. But I think what I hope for you is that you are able to, you know, in some way or another, be able to practice, you know, the competencies that you've learned. I don't think it's a bad thing. But I think, on the other hand, you know, if people don't find their path, even with that background, then it also becomes a challenge because people never get happy. You know, they end up spending many years unhappy in a job, and then you start to hear of people, you know, after 10 years working in a certain field, they say, I'm doing sort of like a career change. There are a lot of people who do that. And for those people, you know, it feels like they spent a lot of time going in the wrong direction. So I don't think there's any right or wrong, but I do think that those people who have that kind of background where their family's expectations are met, I hope for them that they are able to use that basic foundation in one way or another.
Interesting. You mentioned a very important point. What if, yes, you are told, okay, based on what the family need, because most of us, our family already has something that they want to go for, especially the African parent is either like becoming a doctor or an accountant or, you know, one of those courses, right? So you mentioned a very interesting point when you said, now, like, what came to my mind as you were speaking is what happened to those that aren't able to actually find what aligned with what God created them. I mean, it becomes really challenging, and it get me thinking they just need to really, I mean, I believe in God, so I would tell such people to maybe pray and spend more time with God and ask God for what their essence of being, what are they for? Because none of us is created for nothing.
Absolutely.
I mean, everybody is created for something. And I mean, I would tell somebody to really just spend more time in the secret prayer. If you are a Christian, if you are a Muslim, whatever your religion is,
Absolutely.
you just really have to go back to that, your creator,
Absolutely.
and be able to discover who you really are and what you stand for and what your essence are. So it's a scary one, especially to those. I mean, you and I are lucky because God helped us to, you know, to find our purpose. Yeah. But what happened to other people that are, you know, influenced to doing some of those courses and aren't able to find themselves afterwards?
Absolutely.
And it's an interesting one.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I think we can only go to the Creator to guide us to where we're destined to be.
Yeah. Wow, this is good. I mean, I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I'm looking forward to more conversation. I thank you once again for coming, for making time. I know you have a very busy schedules. You get to make some of the big decisions for MTN and for your staff. You're responsible for quite a number of heavy tasks, and I really appreciate that you are able to make up time to come to Waraga Global Influence Podcast. To grace us by your presence. Thank you so much, Mapula.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed the conversation. It's really been a pleasure chatting to you, and I'm really grateful for the time.
Thank you. To my viewers, once again, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank God also for how far He has brought us and for where He's taking us. I really thank you for all your support. If you haven't subscribed once again, I just want you to right now hit that button and just turn on so that you don't miss any of our exciting episode. Once again, thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.